Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Draft. I'm Tom Snapley, and I will be your host today. In this episode, we will be taking an in-depth look at the 2018 NFL Draft and all the implications that could come from it. We have guests, interviews, quarterback analysis, and much, much more. The draft is on the clock right now.
The 2001 NFL Draft. First selection will be made by the New England Patriots. With the first pick in the draft, the first choice, in the 2017 NFL Draft. The Patriots select St. Louis Rams, the Indianapolis Colts, Cleveland Browns, the Atlanta Falcons, San Diego Chargers,
the Oakland Raiders, the Detroit Lions, the Carolina Panthers,
the Kansas City Chiefs, the Houston Texans, the Los Angeles Rams, the Cleveland Browns select
Drew Bledsoe, Orlando Pace, Peyton Manning, Michael Vick, David Carr, Carson Palmer, Eli Manning, Alex Smith,
Matthew Stafford,
Sam Bradford,
Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Eric Fisher, Jadeveon Clowney, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Myles Garrett. With the first pick in the 2018 NFL.
We're going to start things off by taking a look at who's going number one overall in the draft. To do that, I'm joined by Cody Decker. Cody, thanks for being here with us.
Pleasure to be here, Tom.
All right, so the draft is almost about 24 hours away. We still got some time, but what are we all waiting for? We're all waiting to see who's that number one overall pick. The Browns got it this year. They had it last year. Who do you got, Cody?
I have Sam Darnold, and he's the top quarterback on my board. And, Sam Darnold coming off a year at USC where he had 26 touchdowns. But he had 20 turnovers, which might be the con with Sam Darnold here. And I think that's what the Browns are thinking, seeing that they've considered Josh Allen. They've also considered Baker Mayfield. But watching Sam Darnold's pro day, I think he was very natural with throwing the football. And I think he moved really well. So, we're talking about a Cleveland Browns team who now has Jarvis Landry. Josh Gordon's going to be back. Carlos Hyde possibly in the backfield. Maybe they go Saquon Barkley, who knows. But I really think they need that signal caller. And with the Giants possibly taking a quarterback, depending on Eli's future, and the Jets definitely taking a quarterback at 3, I just think the Browns need to take a quarterback, and I think Darnold's the top guy.
So more on the Giants and the Jets later in the show. But I have the last 15 years of first-round picks in front of me. I'm just going to run through them real quick. Carson Palmer, Eli Manning, Alex Smith, Mario Williams, Jamarcus Russell, Jake Long, Matt Stafford, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Eric Fisher, Jadeveon Clowney, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, and Myles Garrett. The thing about these picks, that number one overall pick bust factor in the last 15 years really isn't a thing. Besides Jamarcus Russell, not really. Now, Sam Bradford was drafted in 2010. He's been injury-plagued. Philadelphia fans aren't going to like this. Had a decent run in Philly. He was okay with the Rams, but we all see what Jeff Fisher does as we see what happened with Jared Goff once Fisher got out of there. Now he's going to go with the Cardinals. He's had a decent career. My thing is, the Browns have a lot of needs. Last year they went with Myles Garrett. You saw Jadeveon Clowney get picked, number one overall, and Mario Williams. Sure, both of those are by the Texans. But the thought about getting a defensive player first overall, I don't think it makes sense. You need an absolute game changer who's going to be the face of a franchise. I think it's going to be Josh Allen getting picked. But that thought of a defensive player getting picked first overall, because imagine if they had Chubb and Garrett, let's just say.
Yeah, I just don't see the sense, though, of you having that number 4 pick. I honestly think Bradley Chubb has the possibility of falling to 4 if you're really going to grab him, and Barkley's going to grab him at 2. Here's the problem with Allen, too. That completion percentage is every analyst's nightmare in talking about him with that 57% completion percentage last year. They need a quarterback who's going to be able to make good throws, who's going to be able to depend on his receivers at times maybe to make throws, and maybe Allen would be a good fit in that regard. But you're talking about a great size with Josh Allen, 6'5", 233, had 26 career starts at Wyoming. And if you're talking about marketplace, obviously Wyoming, pretty small school. And going to Cleveland, not the biggest market. Maybe that would be a good fit for Allen to maybe transition into, but I just don't see Allen being the top guy in this quarterback group.
And, of course, when it comes to number one overall pick, you got to consider trading. Now, they have 4. They can get a guy at 4. You think any team's going to vigorously trade up to try to get that number 1? Because there's a lot of parity in these quarterbacks. But if they don't think Darnold's their guy, let's just say, and they think they could wait for Allen or Rosen or Mayfield at 4, do you see a potential trade going down? Because they could get a lot and really get the picks to retool this team.
Well, from what I've been hearing, it's the Browns are not going to be looking for a trade for number 1. Nobody has really called. I think the Browns are really going to stick with this pick, and
it's going to cost people an arm and a leg.
It is, and you know, I think the Jets actually took that into consideration, having to go to number 1. They might have had to give up picks for next year. That's why they only went to 3. I really think the Browns are going to take this pick and try and get their quarterback. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor is not going to be the long-term answer. Tyrod Taylor, at this point in his career, has showed flashes of brilliance, but we know that he can be the other side of the equation. So I really think a quarterback has to go here just due to the fact that the Browns have the whole pool to pick from. Again, you know, the Giants, who knows what their plan with Eli Manning is, and the Jets, you know, what quarterback they really do want to select. But it's really a toss-up here. Obviously, I said Darnold's my pick, but you could see Mayfield, you could see Allen. The Browns have a lot of options, and I think they should keep that option open by taking a quarterback.
Cody says Sam Darnold. I say Josh Allen. We'll see. We'll see if maybe there's a trade or something in the works there. But after the break, Eric Conklin spoke with Rowan students to find out who they believe is the best quarterback in the draft. Don't go anywhere.
Recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Of Rowan University, and I still had another question on my mind, and that question was, who do you think is the best quarterback in the 2018 NFL Draft? So I decided to continue to ask some people, and here's what they had to say.
I think it's Josh Allen out of Wyoming. I think he's been very underrated, even though people doubt him. He did very well in the combine. He's got a heck of an arm. Reminds me very much of Carson Wentz, natural-born leader, and I think he can very well succeed in the NFL, barring he's in Cleveland, because it's unfortunately a place where quarterbacks die.
Personally, I think that a lot of people are sleeping on Lamar Jackson. I understand, you know, there's a lot of raw talent there. You know, he's got this incredible athleticism. A lot of people don't really think he should, you know, be a quarterback.
I would say Josh Rosen. He's going to be the best quarterback. Despite his concussion issues, he's got the most proven track record. I think he even outplayed Darnold last year head-to-head. So I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the 2018 class, no doubt.
A lot of people are struggling with this one. I mean, between Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen. Josh Allen went to Wyoming. I don't really think he has the resume that Sam Darnold does, so I have to say Sam Darnold.
So I think the best quarterback in this draft is Josh Rosen. I think he has played at a high level in a college competition. I think he did a really good job. I think he has all the traits required to make a successful NFL quarterback. And I think compared to the others, he has a high ability to jump in the game right now, and he has a high ceiling to come later on throughout his career.
And there are a lot of different opinions about who is the best quarterback in the NFL Draft, but back to you guys to see what you guys have to say in the studio.
Thanks, Eric. And welcome back to the draft. I'm now joined by Derek Hill, and we're going to be talking about the quarterback talent in this year's draft. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Derek. So we saw actually a lot of the Rowan students love Josh Rosen, it seems like. Some people like Sam Darnold, but we did get Josh Allen. We had a Lamar Jackson in there. I talked to Cody before. I think Allen's going to go number 1 overall. Thing is, I have Allen's completion percentage since high school. Saw it on Bleacher Report today. Since 2011, I'm just going to go down. 59%, 50, 57, 49 at community college, 56, and 56 at Wyoming, respectively. Can you teach accuracy? I mean, he's big. He's got a big arm. Some people think he could be the best. Again, he looks good in shorts, and I know a lot of combine people, they spend their whole life around football, and then they see someone at the combine, and then everything they saw during the season goes out the window. I'm not saying Allen's the best, but he looks the part.
I think Allen's a pretty solid QB prospect, and the completion percentage aren't the best, but that's because he's really a deep throwing quarterback. He's, especially at the combine, he really put on display his strong arm, and he was throwing the ball pretty darn far. I believe that if he goes to a team that has a quarterback that's maybe a veteran and can show him how to get those checkdowns and maybe how to not force those deep passes, I think that would be best for him.
Yeah, and again, Allen goes to Wyoming, maybe not a powerhouse football school, but we've seen people from not, USC and Notre Dame really flourish. If you look at some of the quarterbacks now, again, Eli went to Ole Miss, not that that's a bad school. Ben Roethlisberger went to Miami of Ohio. You had Russell Wilson and Phillip Rivers at NC State, so the college doesn't always matter. But one quarterback that will always get talked about is the SC quarterback, and Sam Darnold. What do you think of him?
Sam Darnold, he's a pretty solid talent. He can honestly, he has a very strong arm, very strong throwing arm. He can squeeze the ball into some pretty tight spots when he really wants to.
Yeah, and so he was 26 for 13 in his touchdown interception ratio. A year ago was 31 and 9, with completion percentage being 67, then 63. So that's right about there. He has some fumbling issues, but let's go to what the Rowan students said. They seem to love Josh Rosen. He's 6'4", 62.6% completion percentage, 26 touchdowns and 10 interceptions this year. Probably runs out of the most typical pro-style offense, the best pocket passer, I believe, in the draft. What are your thoughts on Josh Rosen?
I really like Josh Rosen in this draft, and it's a shame that he's falling down the list because of the concerns of whether or not he truly loves playing the sport of football.
I hate that, too.
I don't think they're true,
I think if
honestly.
you're difficult, that means you just challenge people, and you're going to push your teammates. Maybe he just doesn't like to be complacent. I'm
not even sure if he's difficult. I wonder if it's just that he's a quiet guy, and sometimes you don't need the loud guy that's going to make big media splashes for your team.
So what a lot of people are concerned about is Baker Mayfield and his height. He is 6 feet and 3/4 inches. However, Peter King, the Monday morning quarterback, was on a radio show yesterday, a New York radio show, Evan and Roberts, and he thinks Baker Mayfield's the best person coming out of the draft. If you look at completion percentage, last year, 70.5, 43 touchdowns, 6 picks, brought Oklahoma, a historic powerhouse, back. They didn't win the national championship, but they were in the playoff. Baker Mayfield, you got to have eyes on him.
I think the problem with Baker Mayfield is that when he was at Oklahoma, he had a lot of talent around him. Now he's coming into the NFL, and he's projected right now in a lot of people's drafts to end up going to the Jets. And I'm not sure if the Jets have all those pieces that Baker would be able to succeed with. And plus, there's the off-field problems. If he can not turn into that Johnny Manziel and be successful off-field and stay out of the negative media.
Yeah, so real quick, before we run out of time for this segment, we have Lamar Jackson as well. The Patriots are giving him a good look. A lot of people are concerned with running too much and maybe interceptions, 59% completion percentages. Quick, one sentence, thoughts on Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson's pretty solid. I honestly think he would fit well in New Orleans under Drew Brees for a year or two.
Yeah, so those are the quarterbacks going. Real quickly, who do you think's the best one in the draft? Who would you draft?
I think I would go with Josh Rosen.
I got to agree with you, Josh Rosen. Best NFL prospect, best pocket passer, and I'm a pocket passer type guy. We'll have more with Derek later on in the show, but after halftime, Eric goes around campus one final time to find out what player Rowan students want their favorite team to draft. Stick around.
Eric Conklin here reporting for the draft. So I decided to go to Bozarth Hall here at Rowan University, and I had a couple questions on my mind. One of them being, who do you want your favorite team to draft in the draft this year? So I decided to grab a couple people and ask them it.
For me, there was a lot of different ideas out there, but I think personally, I think they should take, and I'm still working on the name, but I think it's Jair Alexander. He's a cornerback out of Louisville. I think cornerback is a position that the Eagles definitely need to work on, considering that they lost Patrick Robinson, who went to New Orleans.
I'm a Giants fan, so they're pretty much right at the top of the draft, and it's hard for me not to say Saquon Barkley. He's just an electric player, somebody who has compelled me, who's not a college football fan, to actually tune into some of these games. And just watching the plays he's able to make out of the backfield, catching passes, is something truly dynamic and would definitely make Giants games must watch for this season.
It's hard, but I'm going to give it up to Barkley. Barkley, we definitely need a running back more than the offensive lineman, I think.
And I think they should draft Josh Rosen. He has great size and all the skills to be a great quarterback in the NFL. And in college, he was already playing in a big market, so the transition to New York shouldn't be hard for him at all.
I'm a Bears fan. We got our QB of the future last year. Now we need to protect him. Hopefully at number 8, Quentin Nelson is still there. He can run and pass block, and I think he's the best talent in the entire draft. He's a true hog molly. I just love that. You win the games up the front. Truly rooting for him.
I definitely want the Giants to take Saquon Barkley. They haven't had a good running back probably since Brandon Jacobs, even maybe go further back to Tiki Barber. So they really need some stability in the backfield. And I think Eli Manning still has a couple good years where that they can pick a quarterback in next year's draft or the draft after that.
And that is what some of Rowan's students had to say about the NFL draft. Back to you guys in the studio.
Welcome back to the draft. I'm now joined by both Cody and Derek. Thanks for coming, guys.
Happy to be here, Tom.
So we were speculating a lot on quarterbacks. So Derek, I'm going to start with you. You said Rosen's your guy, and understandably, you're a Broncos fan.
Yes.
They're picking 5. What do you want the Broncos to do with that number 5 pick?
I do like Rosen, and I would love for them to draft a quarterback. However, I think that their needs right now are not at the quarterback position. If they keep that number 5, I want them to get Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame, the offensive guard.
Yeah. So looking at what they did in the offseason, the Broncos, they signed Case Keenum. So going off the theme here, I've been going completion percentage 67.6, 22 touchdowns to 7 picks, $18 million a year. Now, he had the 7th best rushing game with the Vikings last year. What do you see from him this year? And do you think this is going to be enough for them not to take a quarterback at 5?
That's what I think. His stats compared to last year are going to fall because of that worse offensive line. And even though we talked last segment about how these are good QB prospects, I'm not sure if the Broncos need a prospect right now behind that offensive line. There's so many other spots on that team that need to be fixed before they can get back to the playoffs.
So another team that has a lot of fixing is the New York Jets. Cody, you are a New York Jets fan. What do you want to see from the Jets? Because the Jets were 19th in rushing last year, 25th in defense, 24th in passing, 23rd in turnovers, and 28th in total offense. They have a lot of needs.
They do, but the Jets did a really good job, I think, of stacking up at running back with Isaiah Crowell and Thomas Rawls. That's probably going to be a committee backfield. They still have Powell and Elijah McGuire. You don't jump up from 6 to 3 without taking a quarterback in this situation. Now, what are their options? Darnold could somehow fall to 3, and as you know earlier in the show, I am a Sam Darnold guy.
I'm going to say that. I love Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
I like Darnold a lot, but I think Rosen probably fits the Giants system better, which I'll get into, so that's where my that's where I lean towards Rosen.
Yeah.
I think Darnold would be a nice fit with the Jets, though.
I think so, too, and he's coming out of a market where California, Southern Cal, you're in one of the biggest markets in the country. You'd be going right to New York, and I think Sam Darnold could handle it very well. I'm hearing a lot of Baker Mayfield murmurs, and that's been the past week, and I personally don't like it just because of his off-the-field issues like you touched on in the last
Does that have anything
segment.
to do with his height?
Well, that's another issue, is the height. 6 foot.
6 foot and 3/4 inches?
Yeah, 6 foot and 3/4 inches. I mean, yes, small quarterbacks don't tend to have success in the NFL, but we talk about the success story of Drew Brees not being a very tall quarterback and having success. I just
don't
think
forget about Russell Wilson either.
And Russell Wilson. So, I mean, I just don't see Baker handling the New York market. I see Baker in 2 extremes. He can either be like Drew Brees if he's really good, if he gets the opportunity to throw a lot, which I don't think is going to be how the Jets run their system, or this could be honestly a Johnny Manziel situation people say.
So I'm a New York Giants fan. The Giants have the 2 pick. They're moving to a 3-4 defense with new defense coordinator James Bettcher. A lot of people have Bradley Chubb, the replacement for JPP. I was talking to you earlier, Cody. I don't love picking a defensive player that high. I would love the Giants to trade back. I want Quentin Nelson. Do I want him at 2? Maybe not. The prospect of Saquon Barkley, though, it seems like that's where they're going. the Giants haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2012 in Ahmad Bradshaw. 1,000-yard rusher is about 62.5 yards a game. I understand they might do a committee running back. I think Barkley would be a nice addition. However, I really think if you really want to rebuild this team, you sign Nate Solder at left tackle. Then you could have Nelson move in. You have Eric Flowers moving out to right tackle. Brett Jones back at center. You could fill your need at right guard. I think that makes Eli a whole lot better. I know the run helps the pass, but you know what else helps the pass? Protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Quentin Nelson, obviously the best lineman in this draft, and obviously
from Homedale, New Jersey.
And
Good
from
old
Homedale,
Monmouth County.
yeah, New Jersey guys. So, you know, when you're talking about obviously the Giants' big woes, Eric Flowers was a big topic of conversation last year. You need somebody to protect Eli Manning, but obviously honestly the Bradley Chubb pick does make sense. Obviously, you don't trade JPP, and you didn't fill his void already going into this draft. I'm sure they have Bradley Chubb really high on their board.
Yeah, but the thing is, moving to a 3-4, do you want the nose? Do you want, you know, whatever it's going to be? So there's a lot of needs from these teams, and we're going to see what they do in the draft. Again, 2 for the Giants, 3 for the Jets, 5 for the Broncos. You're going to see all of our picks and the way they pan out tomorrow for the draft. But we're going to take a quick timeout, but we'll be right back with Cody and Derek after this.
What do you think it would be like to teach? Chances are, you have no idea. Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places, and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable. That's what it's like to teach.
For this part of the show, we're going to be talking about the most important thing that's coming from the draft, fantasy football implications for the rookies. Once again, I'm joined by Cody and Derek, and Cody is sporting his championship belt from the Rowan Television Network Football League. How you doing, champ?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm still on a high from this championship win, and can't wait for next year. Hopefully some of these rookies make an impact.
So we're going to start with you. We've been talking quarterbacks all day, but who do you think is going to be the one to have the biggest fantasy impact this season?
It's funny. I was looking at the wide receivers because we touched on Saquon Barkley so much. I'm going to move to the wideouts, and Calvin Ridley stands out to me, sitting at 6'1", 190 pounds. He had 5 touchdowns last year. It was just under 1,000 yards with 967 and 63 receptions. He's a fast guy, but also that height makes me kind of really love this guy. And I honestly, you're talking about a Dallas team who could really use a wide receiver right now in a youth movement after getting rid of Dez. Calvin Ridley might be their guy at the wideout.
Cody, you took the words right out of my mouth. He just seems like a perfect fit for Dallas. And not only because of Dez Bryant, systematically him with Dak and then Zeke too. That's going to be interesting. But Derek, who do you think is going to be going to have the biggest fantasy implication amongst the 2018 NFL class?
Biggest fantasy implication? I'm not sure because it's such a broad draft.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a QB we didn't bring up earlier. That may end up
sleeper
becoming
fantasy
a starter.
pick, so you could maybe get him around 6, 7 fantasy rounds.
This could be a second-round quarterback pick. I'm going with Mason Rudolph.
So you could draft this guy as your backup, is what you're saying. Okay.
If Mason Rudolph ends up starting for whatever team he goes to, his senior stats, he threw for 4,904 yards. That's 377 yards per game at a 65% completion percentage and 37 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. So if he can make that transition over the summer with the coaching staff on the team he goes to, I think he could end up starting and be the rookie quarterback for fantasy football.
And that's an Oklahoma State team. That is not your, North Dakota State when Carson Wentz was putting up all these stats and everyone's like, oh, I don't know, it's D1AA. That's Oklahoma State. That's a real school that plays real teams. That's definitely interesting. I'm a running backs guy. Last year in one of my drafts, I picked Melvin Gordon, LaShawn McCoy, and Leonard Fournette with my first 3 picks. Naturally, I'm going to say Saquon Barkley. I think touchdowns are, sometimes they come at a premium. And it's hard to get it. Receivers are great. But you know what? If you could have Saquon Barkley get 15 to 20 touches a game, He's an explosive player who could break runs. I think he'll get in the end zone about 9 times next year. And if he's with the Giants, maybe he could get some goal line carries. I'm not saying this because I think the Giants are going to get him. That's who I think the Giants are going to get. But Barkley is definitely a big name guy to look for fantasy football. Now, well, I know we talked quarterbacks. I think your Darnold might be the best fantasy quarterback coming out. I like Rudolph and Jackson if he starts too. I think Darnold has the highest ceiling. I think he will throw the most touchdowns. I think he's going to throw the most picks too. So I don't know what round you maybe want to get him in.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, obviously the Browns quarterback, whoever gets drafted, won. Tyrod Taylor's already been named the starter.
That's
so
true.
You're not going to be wanting to take whoever gets selected at 1. Obviously the Jets, you don't know about Teddy Bridgewater's situation, and Josh McCown is only getting older. So maybe the Jets starting quarterback could be the rookie quarterback to look at this year. But I do like your Rudolph pick as well. Oklahoma State's always on upset alert for beating a lot of the good teams, and Rudolph's really proved himself.
So who do you guys think in terms of this whole draft in fantasy, who do you think is going to be your best value pick for fantasy? You know, it could be someone that, even if they are drafted high like Ridley, you think maybe you could get in the 4th round. Who do you guys have as a value pick?
You know, I want to go back to another wide receiver, actually, DJ Moore, who's probably second on a lot of the big boards for wide receivers. 215 pounds, 5'11", out of Maryland, and had 8 touchdowns last season, over 1,000 yards receiving. I mean, that size is probably not something that you're looking for when you're talking about maybe you being a GM in this league, but when you talk about fantasy, DJ Moore might be one of those guys who gets into the slot, maybe in a system for, like, let's say maybe the Patriots or maybe even the Eagles. You know, this could
Arizona potentially.
Arizona. This could be a late round pick, and DJ Moore is a guy who can maybe slide under the radar. He might even be available in free agency maybe in fantasy.
What about you, Derek? Any value picks?
I mean, I have a couple running backs here because Saquon Barkley, he's really been at the top of everybody's list. But nobody's really been talking about Darius Geis from LSU. He basically replaced Leonard Fournette last year, and they honestly didn't even miss Fournette down there in LSU because of how good he was. He's a strong power back, and I honestly hope the Broncos get him in maybe the 2nd round with their pick. And then on top of that, there's the 2 Georgia running backs, Sonny Michael and Nick Chubb. Chubb being the power back, and Michael being compared to Alvin Kamara, who had a great rookie campaign last year.
Yeah, and those names definitely going to be something to watch out for, especially because with the way running backs go in the NFL, we'll see what happens. I can't wait for the fantasy draft. Now it's time to begin the 2-minute drill. Through the draft and in free agency, the teams are going to restock their weapons. And who do you guys see rebuilding their team and going to get that Lombardi Trophy for the big game in February? So I'm asking for big game predictions in February. Cody, you started the fantasy segment. Derek, I'm going to ask you, who do you see winning the big game in February?
Wow, this is a very tough question. It's very early for this. Normally I wait until after
You always wait for after the
preseason,
draft at least, but you know teams are going to restock. And we're gonna go with it.
I guess I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles again. They kept most of the same roster and they improved their defense a little bit more. They're just too powerful on offense, especially with Carson Wentz coming back to, I think, not go back and possibly win.
All right, so you have the Eagles. Who do you have coming in the AFC though?
AFC. Come back to me on that one. I gotta think about the AFC.
All right, I got the Rams coming out of the NFC, and obviously we know they stacked up at corner with Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib on that team. You know, they did a lot of great stuff on the defensive side of the ball to complement an offense that's done really well. So I think the Rams are going to come out of the NFC. In the AFC, I think the Steelers are going to bounce back. And they haven't done maybe much this offseason as they've wanted to, but they still have the killer bees right there in Ben, Le'Veon, and Antonio Brown who can lead the charge. That defense, if they can stack up a little more, can be one of the best defenses in the AFC. I say the Steelers get back to the Super Bowl this year.
So you have Rams Steelers. Who's your winner?
The Rams are going to win.
Okay, you have the Eagles coming out. Who do you have the AFC, and then who's your winner?
I honestly like the Steelers as well. I mean, they had a great offense last year, and with the Patriots losing some
you're going to have the Battle of PA.
Yeah.
Who's going to win?
I'm going with the Eagles.
It's going with the Eagles to repeat. And with that, the clock has run out for this draft special. Thanks to Cody and Derek for coming in studio, and everyone who participated in interviews, for Eric Conklin and the rest of the crew behind the scenes. I'm Tom Snapley. Thank you for watching. Special thanks to all the crew, Casey Holcomb, Professor Winkler, for doing whatever they did to make this draft episode possible. We're looking forward to the draft tomorrow.